Hi, I'm Corey. Welcome to Creating with Scraps. This is a completely unplanned, spur of the moment kind of a thing. I'm having surgery this afternoon, and I've got to kill some time between now and the time we go. So I thought, well, I can come in my craft room. I need to distract myself from not being able to get coffee or drink coffee. And one of my personal staples is little booklets, basic. And I call this building basic booklets. Like many people use tags and journal cards, and I, of course, use those too. I add booklets to my journals all the time, and to the pockets and such. And I do it because most of my pages are decorative in nature, but I want to have room for journaling. I don't have a lot of blank pages in my journals just for places to write, so I include places to write. And so because of that, I use a lot of little booklets. And most of the time, I make these little booklets from lined paper, though it doesn't have to be lined, and leftover scraps, bits, rectangles and such. They can be square, they can be rectangle, they can be whatever. And when I have a little bit of downtime and I'm in the mood and I don't want to overthink, I will often make these. So that's what I thought I would sit down and do myself, just to distract myself. And then I realized, you know what? This is one of the things I wanted to make for 10-minute makes. So why don't I just turn on the camera and see if I can do an entire, this one needs to be scored. If I can do an entire start to finish, I mean, no prep, no getting supplies, no none of it, in 10 minutes. So that's what I'm going to try to do. There's a variety of different ways that I've made them here. There's not one perfect way. It just depends on the scraps. And before I grab my supplies, maybe I'll spend a minute or two going over that. I'll grab mostly rectangles, and then I'll start to think, okay, how can I make this into a booklet? Sometimes it's a bigger piece, like this was a rectangle. This happens to be, what's that stuff? Napkin, glued and ironed on top of card. And it was a little bit wider than I would normally use for a booklet. So I took the bottom in and I rolled it up, and that was my base. And I had a leftover strip, so I thought, well, maybe I'll make some kind of a closure or something for it. So that's what that is. I'm not completely done with it, but I've got the basic booklet done. I've got a little pocket on the inside, and that was just because of what the scrap called for. And in this particular one, I used extra composition paper, coffee dyed, and I sewed it right down the middle. And then I covered it with washi. That's one very common way I do it. Another way that I do it is, this was a fabric piece that I had left over, and it was just a long scrap. I folded it in so that, because it's white on the back, so that the same fabric covers. And I had a doily on my desk, so I just sewed the doily to the front, and then I sewed the edges. And then the gap in between, I just glued down a piece of washi. And I took some notebook paper, sewed along the edge to make it fit. And there is another way to do the basic book. This one, I just had narrow strips of paper left, so I sewed down the edge and just glued it straight into the back page of the book. I had a piece of coffee dye scrap, and it's cardstock, so I didn't need to fold and fold like I would if it was copy paper. But I had a piece of vellum, printed vellum, on my desk also. So I put the printed vellum on the top of it. I don't have anything here. And so I've got a tuck here. So I could put a book in a book if I wanted, or I could put some journal cards, vocabulary cards, or tea cards or something in there. So that's another way that I can do it, just depending on what the book is asking for. This was some of that, the yellow paper, the straw paper. I had a long strip, fold it because it's very thin, so I folded it, and then put washi down the middle where the middles didn't meet, and then I just glued in a little notebook. This is probably my favorite way to do it because it opens flat and easy, and then you can put a decorative bit over here or a note if you want, and then you still have lots of pages to write. But again, it just depends on what the book calls for. Same idea here. This is just eco paper maybe, and I saved this for the quote-unquote belly band because there was this little bit, handmade paper, that's what it is, handmade paper with flowers and such, and there was this little leaf in there. This was an embossed paper piece I had, just a scrap, and it's on card, so I didn't fold it and then fold it. I just used it like this, and then I took this paper and I sewed it right down the middle. Now when I do that, I often sew the top stitch on the outside, and you really almost can't even see that. So I didn't cover it with anything. I left it just like this. This one, I thought, you know what, I very rarely use a pamphlet stitch. So I used a pamphlet stitch on this one just because I could. And then I liked the little red flowers, and I had some little red beads in my bin on my desk. So I put the little red beads on there. This was, somebody had gifted me this, it was 2 pieces, and it wasn't in there straight, of embossed paper card. And this way is a great recommendation of what I would not necessarily do. So I had sewed this down because it was 1 sheet of paper. And rather than gluing it flat to the back like I normally do, I glued this bit right into the curved spine. Just put it right in there. Well, you can see when I did that, when I opened it, it tears. Now I'll fix that. I'll put a piece of washi there and it'll work just fine. But it was a good reminder to me that not always work equally well. The rest of it, you know what? The rest of this is totally okay. So maybe just a piece of washi there will take care of it. And then this one is just, it was a journaling card, one of those double-sided journaling cards in the Your Creative Studio that I was determined to use if I was going to keep. So I just took that journaling card, folded it over, and it's printed on both sides. And I added a little bit of paper. I sewed it to the middle. Now I use a sewing machine, so I almost always sew this way. And then I covered it with a bit of washi to hide that spine. But you do the same thing with a pamphlet stitch or staples or glue, whatever you have, whatever you like. So lots and lots of options. And like I said, I make these just constantly based on what scraps I've got, and if I'm in the mood to just make and not think, or if I'm watching a movie and I want to keep my hands busy while I watch a movie. So, you know, this is just 1 bin of these. I have quite a few because I use them quite often, and they're fun and easy to make, and they're a great way to use up your paper stash and leftover scraps. So they're handy for a whole bunch of reasons. So let's see, I've talked and explained them for 7 minutes. Okay, so now I am going to start at 7:30 and see what I can make in 10 minutes. Just with, like I said, no prep, what I have on hand. So the first thing I'll usually do, I have my scraps sorted by style. And so I'll grab my scrap bin. This one happens to be my patterned. Somebody made this for me. Look, it's really pretty. It's coffee dyed, and then it looks like it's stenciled on the top. So this one, you know what? Let's just use this one. It's the top one there. But I use this. I grabbed this bin. I could make a little vellum booklet because I've got this long piece of leftover vellum. I'll put both of those out there. So maybe we'll make 2. Oh, this one doesn't even need to be folded or cut. So I'll put these 2 out there. Let's see if we can maybe make 2. Maybe that's wishful thinking on my part, but we'll see. All right, so this is a little long. Height is good. This is what, about 5 inches, 4.5 inches, something like that. Yeah, this one's 4.5. So I am going to look at the paper, which is what I often do first. And I don't really love that 45 cents, but I do realize that it would make a great tuck spot inside. However, I started to do this and I realized vellum is thin. Unless I want to put this on top of copy paper, I need to double up this vellum. So instead, I'm going to go close to the center without going all the way to the center, and I'm going to fold it. And I'll do the same thing on this side. Notice I did not make them meet in the middle. I've got, I don't know, 1/2 inch or so gap on each side. All right, and then so those matched up pretty nicely. And that will be my first, and I'll match these up, crease them down, and that'll be my first booklet. Now if I hadn't cut it perfectly straight or I hadn't folded it perfectly straight, and I didn't, I'll trim this up at the end. I'll just trim the top and the bottom and it'll work just fine. And it's a little forgiving because you've got a spine there. And if I can just refold it. So refolded that one. Okay, there's that. Now this one is too long, or too, I could make a pocket. I could fold, you know what, let's make a long one. Okay, so I'm gonna fold this up just like this. And that way I've got some of the pretty edge on the inside. There's something there, which is fine. I am going to, because of the bulk with a fold, I'm gonna cut, I can't even really see it. I'm just gonna cut right down here and right down here so that when I fold this booklet, and it doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to cover that, I'm going to take that out so that it's not that extra bit of bulk, and then fold it. And it's still a little wide for a booklet, and it's a little thin, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to fold, I unfolded my pocket, and I'm going to fold it into about right here, and that'll make it a little sturdier. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I unfolded my pocket, and I'm going to fold it in right here. And this is what I mean by letting the paper, what piece you're working with, tell you what to do, you know. Now, I could fold it up like this, but I don't need a pocket that bulky. So now I'm going to take out these two bottom corners. Normally, if I were trying to make it perfect, I would get my straight edge and my X-Acto knife and my ruler. But you know what? It's going to be inside of a pocket. It's not going to show, so I don't need to be that fussy. All right. And I cut that bit out, and I'll cut this bit out. I just have to make sure I can see this one. And I can cut a little above, a little below. Well, I would cut above the curve line on this one simply because, the score line, simply because it'll be easier to fold. Because remember, I'm going to ultimately fold this into a booklet. So I've cut those two bits of ledger out. And I can now fold these pieces in and fold these up, and I still have pockets, and I still have a great little notebook. Okay, and again, I can trim the whole thing up at the end. All right, so now I'm ready to do my next step. I'm going to grab my scrap paper, and I'm going to glue these pieces on themselves. And again, the whole design, or the whole reason for that, is extra stability, because this is just a little bit thinner paper. It's just copy paper, and I just wanted a little bit sturdier, and that was the size scrap I had. So there we go. Yeah, and you can see they're not lined up. That's all right. That's an easy fix. Those are glued down now, and I'll just trim where they didn't line up nicely. Okay, so I've got those two pieces glued down, and now I've got the pockets, and I'm going to put the pockets up. And I'll just glue the pockets. This will be good for me to see how well I like using this. I'm still in the learning curve phase. Put that there, and then a magnet. And for those of you who asked, these are Glassboard Studio magnets. And I work on a magnetic mat. So even with, whoops, I went a little wide there. That's okay, it'll still work. So even though I've got paper down here as a shim, or as a cover so the glare doesn't come through, the magnets hold just fine. All right, so while that's drying, let's work on this one, this little vellum one, and I folded it in and in. So let's glue. Oh, this is, you know what? That wasn't very bright. This is my glue page. This was a sketchbook that I picked up dirt cheap. And somebody was obviously learning, so I'm using these as my glue pages. All right, I'll put some wet glue, or glue stick down here, just because it doesn't show through. And I want it to be nice and snug. And then I'll put some glue stick down here. And fold that in. I'm going to move this gluey piece out of the way. This is just my regular work surface. Okay. Now, when I'm doing that, I often will take this piece to work out any bubbles. And now you saw I didn't do that perfectly, or, you know, I didn't make sure I glued every inch, but this will work just fine. Now, often I will sew around the edges, but we're not going to today, simply because not everybody has access to a machine. Just know that that is a very reasonable option for you. Now, this one's, oh, let's give that a second to dry. So this one should be good to go. All right, so now you can see I've got this gap here, basically, and I want to reinforce that just a little bit. Is it absolutely necessary? No, but I like the finished look it gives, and I like the function of it. So I've got some washi in a bin. I've got a bunch of washi, but this is just the stuff I've got right to hand. I've got this one, so let's see. Is that wide enough? Yeah, that looks like it's wide enough. And then I've got a bin of the really fine washi that I use all the time when I put on tags and stuff, the really thin stuff. And then I've got the wider rolls. So I'll put that right here. I am going to put some glue down right here in the center. And let's make sure that, see, that's a little too narrow. So I need something a little bit wider. Okay, how about this one? Yep, that's a little bit wider. I just grabbed this washi out of my bin. And I didn't cut it perfectly straight right there, so this will hide where I cut it. Okay, I put the glue down because washi is designed to be a temporary tape, and I want this to be a permanent hold. Well, semi-permanent. I mean, it's junk journaling. I want it to be a permanent hold, so let's go like this. And then I'll push it down and just tear it off. Okay, yeah, that works nicely together. And then I'll put this off to the side, and again, same thing, I'll give the glue a chance to hold. While that one's drying, let's move on to this one. Okay, now I need a piece of washi right here between those two seams. And if I remember correctly, let's see, this is vellum, so it's going to show through, and I've got that black here. And I think I have some whiter black washi. I think I'm going to use that. Yeah, I do. I'm going to use that simply because the black will work well with the other black. Sorry for that loudness. And I will put glue down here. And you know what? It may not be quite wide enough. Yeah, it is. But if it wasn't wide enough, I just used 2 strips. It's okay. You know what? I have narrow black washi too. And I have, you know what I have? Is I have numbered black washi. So if this one isn't quite wide enough, here we go. If this one isn't quite wide enough to get the whole thing, I'll just put a little piece next to it. Or I can do that. You know what? Maybe I'll do that anyway. Okay, so putting down this washi. Yeah, that's about right. I don't often tear it that way because it rolls up on itself and I end up being challenged. Okay, so let's see. I want to put this down straight. Now, most of the time I don't have this paper to hide the glare, and I use the grid on my work surface to make sure it's straight. But for the sake of speed and right now, I'm just going to eyeball it. And it's close enough. And I said I was going to use this to mimic that number, so let's peel this back. If I can find this place where it starts. Sometimes that's the challenge. Okay, I know I've gone all the way around this. Oh, there it is. Okay. And do I want it to go to the right or the left? I don't know. Doesn't matter. I'll put a piece of washi right down here. Now remember, this is the inside. Excuse me. This is the inside of my little notebook, journaling book. Okay. All right, so let's push these off to the side. And while this one is drying, I will trim this one. So maybe it was good that I pulled up too. It gives me a little bit of dry time. Okay. All right, and that is done. And now I need to put the paper in. Fold this over so I've got a pocket on the inside of each so I can tuck a journaling card or an additional piece in there. And now all I have to do is put some paper in here. So I've got a bin of scrap paper. I keep a bin of lined scrap paper because I use it all the time. And you know what? I got this at a yard sale for next to nothing. I think she might have even given it to me. And I usually use 4 or 5 pages. So let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll use 5 pages of that. Where did it go? Oh, here it is. I put it in here. So I'll use this paper for this one, and you know what? This little booklet is just about the right size, so I'll use that for that one. That's kind of cheating, but I do that when I have, like if I've got a long piece, I will, when I've got a long piece, I'll sew the whole thing down and then I'll just cut it off to where I need it. And that's exactly what I did here. And that looks like it's going to fit, so we'll put it for there. Okay, notebook paper. Now, a lot of times I will fold it in half. Well, this one is too narrow to fold it in half and have it fit. So I'm just going to put it on one side. So I'll run it through my machine, and you can even count if you like. See how long it takes to run it through. I keep my sewing machine right next to me on my desk because I use it every time I make something. And okay, so there's that. So I just sewed down that. You could glue it, you can staple it. I like the stitches, so that's why I stitched. Okay. And now I'm going to trim it to fit. And I can measure it, or I can just eyeball it. And I think for the sake of this, I will just eyeball it. I am going to trim off the holes because those don't add any writing space to it. So there's that. And then I'll lay it down, and I use this as my guide. So right about here is the edge of the page, and I usually come in just a little tiny bit from the edge of the page. And there, that's straight. Now, I will save this because I will use this on one of those little fold-out long and skinny ones. This is a great little tiny list. So a lot of times I will either just paper clip or staple or fold this or sew this right at the same time because I can. It's easy. Now I'm going to put this in here, and let's see, I need it to go to about this line. Okay, so, and I want it a little bit smaller. I don't want it flush so much. So I'm going to use that guideline that I marked and drop it off. And now I'll save this for a little itty bitty booklet. Okay, so I'll put a strip of glue. Now, one of the reasons I glue is you can see I didn't back stitch this, so the stitch could conceivably come out. But when I put the glue on there, it kind of holds it in place and I don't have to worry about it. All right, line this up in here. Make sure it's mostly centered in my book. And I'll move it to the side to dry it. And now we'll finish this one up. Okay. All right, and that's the inside. This is, you know what? I don't really love this because of the way it looks right there. That's the inside. You can see where the glue is, or this was the inside, this was the outside. Well, you know what? Let's just do it like this. Flip it around. No reason I can't. And we'll put the washi on the outside instead of the inside. Adds the same function, makes it strong, makes it sturdy, right? I could do a pamphlet stitch now and put that in there, but because I have this booklet that's just basically ready to go, I will just trim it down. Let's see, it's on this line right here, and glue it in, and we'll call it done. That one's too small even for me to see. And I will put this right here on top of the bugs. See, it's instinct. I automatically reach for this glue, even though the other one's right there to hand. I'll get used to it. And I'm going to lay this down. Make sure it's in there straight. And done. Okay, 23 minutes. We said, what did I say? We said started at 7:30. So that's 15, 16 minutes. Okay, but we made 2. So that's way less than 10 minutes each. I am going, because I've got some seepage on the glue here, I'm going to take that out. I'm just using my bone folder, and I keep a baby wipe next to me because I've always got excess glue. And this is washi, so if I need to and want to, I can just take the extra glue off like that. All right, now I've got 2 pockets on the front and the back, and a cover that I can decorate as I choose later. I can round these corners or leave them as they are, but here is a completed basic booklet ready to go inside of a journal. This one would be a little bit longer journal, or I make small journals generally, but this is absolutely ready to go as a little notepad. And this one, same thing, with the vellum. Vellum is a super tightly woven paper, so I can easily wipe that up. That's why you get the buckling or puckering effect. And match that up. And there is another little note, a booklet. So there you go, 2 of them in just a short amount of time. For those of you who didn't watch the collaboration video, I'm having surgery today. My ankle repair, my Achilles tendon repair didn't go quite to plan, and it's detached, and 2 tendons have detached and retracted. And then there's another issue. So they're going to go in and fix those today. See, this is what I don't love this. See how I scroll? There is a little whoozy what's it in there pin holder thing. So if you're not going to use your glue for a little bit, you're supposed to put it in there, but my eyeballs are old, so I don't always see it. There you go. It's not that bad. It worked just fine. It's a cool tool. Anyway, so it's going to be a couple days before I'm able to get to the next project. Let's see, which one was it? Not linen and lace. These are ones too. I see I have a whole bin of things to make with you guys. Some linen and lace bits and those, but bookmarks. So building basic bookmarks, because bookmarks to me are like tags and note cards, journaling cards, and these booklets. Use them all the time. And then what I thought I would do, because that'll be 10 different pieces. When we've got the 10 different pieces, I'll take one of the journals, one or more of the journals that we created in the journal video that has a cover that we created in the cover video, and then we'll use some of the bits that we've made and we'll put them together in our journal so that you're seeing how in small batches of time you can assemble a journal using the pieces that we've already created. So that is my plan. That is my thought. If I owe you something in the mail, please know that's coming out soon. I've got everything packaged. It's just a matter of getting it shipped out. And I appreciate you all. I love that you're joining me, and I love the comments that you're leaving. It makes me happy that I decided to share these quick makes, because a lot of us are in this situation where we just can't create for long periods of time. All right, take care until I see you again. Happy creating.